so I think I managed.
We are doing. I've been doing.
Sorry, say again.
Well, I could just mention then that the work that I've been doing this the last couple of months has a bug in how it shows up in the designer right now. But the work in general is targeted at increased performance and lower memory usage. And I think both of you are still using maybe a local executable. So then it's not like forever running, but we are having more and more users that has forever running servers. And so we have had to loop back, you could say, and redo work on, we call it like pruning, right? Pruning the tree of ecospaces. So you could use that feature also going forward without that. So there are new ways to call to like garbage collect, but not the technical .NET term of garbage collecting, more like please can you prune all the subscriber lists and publisher lists and data in there. And the goal here has also been eventually to in a while to be able to dynamically unload part of the ecospace, so that you don't have to throw everything out. So if you have a user that is running the whole day, it can actually see which data is accessed, and if it hasn't been accessed for some time, you could unload it. That's the goal, so that we will have a server that both takes less memory while running, but also can prune itself and also react. I've been trying that to react to high memory usage on the server. Then it will like pull back and try harder to prune the executing ecospaces.
Okay,
version of garbage collection.
Yeah, but it can't be just general garbage collection, right? So it needs to understand the internal model, and because there's a lot of things that are like cached, or you blow it up maybe, but then so when is the right time to compact it again? And so it's not garbage collection from the like only technical. It actually needs to like execute code, and then the garbage collector of the .NET framework can come in and garbage collect what's there in the end. So it's
more, it's more about making memory free than letting .NET tidy things up. But I thought the MDriven framework already could unload old objects from the ecospaces. I clearly remember drawing such an icon for bold once upon a time.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. But it's not like an automated, easily triggered process. So we wanted to make it like a built-in feature that you can, like, hey, run the pruner and run it hard or run it light, and then it will like look at all the things that has been, because there's also a lot of data created if you use derivations or derived associations and things like that, and they also need to be pruned. If you have a long-running thing going on, so that could be a thing. And so we're working on automating these processes so that they can be easily called by, for example, Turnkey. Turnkey is one of the users, right? The designer is another, and the MDriven server uses it, and it's like folded into itself several times. So actually, the Turnkey server uses an ecospace to know what to do.
Right? Of course.
Yeah. So it's like.
Yeah. So it's these kind of things that come up to the surface when we have servers that should run for days with lots of things coming and going, and normally or historically the ecospace has been in the client, and that has been coming, and then it's going closing. So no much need for elaborate housekeeping while running. But as we want to service more users over a longer time, there's things that pops up to the surface that we notice isn't optimal.
Yeah.
Having said that, about the local thing, nevertheless, I think I've hit problems of this nature myself when doing certain housekeeping routines. I did something recently where I was getting rid of a lot of legacy stuff out of one of my databases, and it was about 7.5 million objects I was deleting, and and I had to do it over several sessions because of this kind of issue. I think it was this kind of issue anyway. It was only I never really fully got to the bottom of it as to why the program was terminating all the time, because it was I just kind of suffered it and through, because this is like a one-time operation. But I think the problem this was the problem. It was just memory issue, because it was accumulating all of those those derivations and the subscriptions and what have you.
Yeah. And then that's a generic question on how to handle, especially deletes, because deletes is, you don't really care, you just want to delete. But in order to delete, you have to first load. And in order to be sure that you unregister foreign keys everywhere, or associations on the other side, you have to check that. And the other side might be very large, so the generic delete will quite often be a lot heavier than your assumption would be.
It's not just a drop table.
No, and there is almost always an explanation, but it might not be the one that you thought of when you first estimated that this will be an easy job.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I didn't think it was surprising how much time and CPU it was taking. Yeah, ultimately, I launched multiple processes on a multi-core CPU, so and that sped it up considerably. But it was very surprising. I was tempted at the beginning when I saw how long it was going to take to actually just manually do it straight on the database.
Yeah.
I could have, which I probably could have done, but laziness dictated that
depending on the referential integrity, you don't want to leave keys to deleted objects elsewhere. So, but so that's actually, I think that it might be better to always think of it as a two-pass problem. First one pass just disconnecting stuff, and the second pass actually delete the stuff that you disconnected, because then you get you can get a better option on what end to access the deletion or the decoupling from. So if there's one object that has a many link with a million things, it's actually better to run through the million things and disconnect the one on each, rather than trying to delete the one and pushing it into loading a million things just like that, in order to check if there's issues with deleting this or decoupling it.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, all right. So we got Herbert as well. Welcome, Herbert.
Thank you. I think I'm just trying to resolve my camera.
Yeah.
I've just invited Herbert. He's a new project manager for our internal work in the company. And I invited him to just see what these meetings are. It's a very compact crowd today, but we hope we will start with inviting more people also. So we're trying to boost our internal processes and an outreach also to our marketing. You could call it.
Yeah. So we thought we should start off this season with showing off some of the things and thoughts that we have been working on during the summer. And basically it's a lot to do with bringing in enough of styling capabilities into the model so that we can sort of manage to do enough for most of the use cases using the model alone. Of course, there will always be this option to go out to do view overrides, to do your own HTML or do your own style sheets, to do your own stylings, and that's fine. We will always need that for rand cases, but our goal is to let the sort of obvious common things be available offhand. So we are thinking and testing out strategies for bringing those ordinary common things into the model. And there has been a few videos on the new things, so I'm not going to repeat everything, but this new icon to reach the styles in model dialog directly from here. And
you're not sharing at the moment.
Yeah, right. Good.
And neither are you recording, I suppose.
Yes, I am actually recording, but that doesn't
Oh.
help you if I'm not sharing.
Oh.
Yeah, and now, okay, entire screen. No, the entire screen. I have to do it like that. Screen. Sorry.
Oh, there we are.
All right, good. So I was pointing to this new tool button to bring up the styling, and but yeah, let's just think about how I should address this. So this is of course a very simple model. It's just a one class and the auto form for it. So bringing up the view model editor, it would look like this. I will also add a placing container to this, so nothing new here. But we have of course been able to do all the simple widgets in a normal UI from the get-go, like edit boxes and switch boxes, combo boxes and buttons and check boxes, etc. But then there's the next level of a bit more complex UI. And we have had a couple of use cases where there has been request for like a tab set. How would you do a tab set with view models so that you could fit more information into one screen without navigating, etc. And the general idea was that would probably be possible using just the placing containers and the standard widgets that we have. Yeah, that's easy said, but how would you do it? And would you need to know a lot about the strategy in order to get it going? Yeah, true. But then we remember that we had this thing from the past called Snippets, where you actually could do a pattern and remember the pattern and then reapply the pattern. So that would be a good way if we could sort of implement the tab set and then put that in a snippet and provide a snippet, and then it would be easy to apply. Sure, so we did that, but then the next issue was how do we distribute the snippets, and what snippets should we distribute. We don't know it's not one size fits all, and people would want different things. But since we introduced this live edit mode with the assets things, we have discussed this in the past with the components and everything, that it's easy to pull things from our GitHub repository holding all the components that we provide, and it's easy to refresh this. We thought that maybe we could just put so here are the components that we maintain in the GitHub repository, and then we have the mergeable models that's easy to make use of to pull into your large model, I should say. And then we have this new thing, MDriven snippets. So we put the snippets here, so that's an easy way to sort of distribute them. And if I were to go to a view model now and stand here and say snippets, there's really no snippets loaded into this model at this point, but I can simply right click one of these and say import from here, and if I do that, I will have the option to use that from here. So then the TabSet snippet was added as a menu option, and whenever I save my model now and reopen it, it will remember that this snippet is loaded into this model or merged into this model. I can even sort of go to the edit snippets and do changes to that snippet if that's what I want, but I'm not gonna show that too much today. And I have a breakpoint on the other screen, so but now the idea is that I can simply apply this snippet, and I'm gonna do it in the I'm gonna start a live editor for this, and then I'm gonna just do an instance here. Yeah, so now this is the view, but I'm gonna apply the snippet, and I'm gonna turn on live edit to get the tree, and I'm gonna stand here and say let's add this TabSet snippet. And then, since this snippet was done with an option that it's configurable, so I can choose my own value here. What do I want? It apparently makes use of a variable that holds which tab is current, so I can give that my own value or just leave it as default, and then I press apply. And if I were to yes, so here I would have hoped, yeah, I remember that I did something, I missed something. We have a bug that actually requires me, because now the styles that was merged from this snippet didn't get applied correctly, so I'm gonna actually redo that, and I have to add this snippet once more. How should I do this? I'm gonna delete it.
Is this also my fault, or is this?
No, that's my fault, actually. Not everything is your fault.
Okay, I'm happy.
So I'm gonna apply the snippet now that where I have open. Let's see that I did enough here. I'm gonna create a dummy style to work around this bug for now. It's gonna fix that, of course, but that's so I'm gonna add that snippet and VTab 1, apply it, and now the view has been updated with this sort of styled view of it. And if I watch the tree, what actually has happened is, I'm gonna hide this one, is it was one placing container, that's a column that was added, under that a row, and under that a column. And here's the three buttons, and the button has specific style expressions. This is also a new thing that we can turn on so that we see the expressions, style expressions in the tree straight off. That's easier to follow that. So so this style expression is if VTab 1 equals 1, then it uses one style, otherwise it uses another style. So the effect becomes this, that these are buttons, just plain buttons placed here, and when I press one of those, it switches to page 2 and to page 3. So there's really nothing extra, just normal widgets combined in this way to get this effect of having a tab notebook, so to speak. And how to handle this is basically what was made possible with the extended styling. So for a tab button, so the tab button is when it's not selected, and the tab button selected, it addresses the component as such and has a fill color and border radius to get these rounded corners. And the component content, that's gonna match the buttons. So the component is the whole block, and the component content, when it is in action, is just the actual button. And what we have done here is just that, say it's gonna have this fill color, which matches the same color as the whole component. And what we also said is, and this is new, that it's not gonna have a shadow. So if we turn off the shadow, then the button becomes flat and it melts down into the component. So we get this effect of they looking like tabs. When I click it and hover it, it still has the shadow, and I'm not sure what to do about that, but that's the way it is at this moment. I'm considering if we're gonna address that, but if it loses focus, it sort of melts into the background again. And of course, so this is sort of shows the strength of having the ability to do even beyond the obvious things with the simple widgets just applied in a specific order. This will also come to the VPF client, but it hasn't been implemented fully as of yet. But one problem with this kind of layered UI, what I mean with layered UI is that the page 3 in this case actually takes the same space as page 2 and page 1. So how would that look in the designer? Well, it would probably, since these are in a column, they would like be stacked on top of each other, and the design of it would be confusing. So in order to handle that, there already was a thing on placing containers called this hide in design. So hide in design was primarily added to work with when you have the floating parent, when you actually do layered UI, but you can't design it because everything is on top of each other. So what we did with the hide in design was to say that maybe this is the case, that if it's on in a row of placing containers, then it should be off for all the others. So this is usually the pattern for a layered. So when you turn on hide, the next one will also be hide, and it's only one that's visible. So if that was the strategy, or if that is the pattern, then we could add a button to actually tweak this hide in design from the tree. And whenever I press this button for design show, so this now I press it on page 1, I would get the page 1 in the design surface, because that was unhidden in design, and the other two, them being siblings, are hidden. So we get the effect of being able to quickly switch between the pages and do our design of each page. So having said that, we could sort of grab this attribute 1 and put that into let's put that into page 3, and in order to see it, I can see it on page 3, but if I look at page 2, it's not there. And if I save that, and that should be seen here then, and everything would work as before. With so that's one way we envision to bring this kind of complex, non-obvious, multi-part UI components straight into the model. So what's neat about this is, since the styling and everything came from the snippet, it's just like a stamp that tries to add what's not there already. So since the styles are already there now that I've used it once, I can actually own the styles myself, and if I don't like these colors, I can just change them to something more to my liking. And let's do this one super white, and if I do that, I will have the effect that and whenever I would do another tab notebook, it would use these colors and these styles, because it matches on the names. So that would be an easy way to have all my tab notebooks look the same throughout the application without too much hassle. Well, we added another, just to prove a point with the abilities, I added an image carousel. That's another one of the generic components that might come in handy. I can think of a few more. Maybe the next one that we'll do is the sort of a combo box, but where you can choose many, because that's not easy to do with the standard HTML widgets. You have to combine. You have to bring up a list box with checkboxes, and then you have to allow the user to choose multiple and know what to do with that. But of course you don't want to use the space for the whole grid all the time, so that's something that's going to pop up when the user is selecting, and then it's going to fold down, and then we need to decide how to present a multiple choice when it's folded. But let's look at the image carousel. I'm just going to import that snippet as well into my model, and I guess I can add that to page 2 here, and snippets, the carousel. You notice that didn't bring up an option UI because that wasn't parameterized in any way. It was just the one option. So having done that, we would look at it here. So if I go to tab 2, there's and in order to have some data, this tab notebook just used 2 or 3 SVG simple images as placeholders. Of course, one would have multiple choices on how to do this as a list of images from data, or any way you see fit. But at least this shows the pattern real clear, and also the styles needed to get it to look like this. And of course then there's the buttons to step through it, and identifier on what image is currently on. And yeah, maybe I did it so that it continues to loop round if you step. You can choose, of course there's a definition on how that should work, but that's one of the good parts. It's easy to just do your own snippet to change it to your own definition, and then use that as a stamp wherever you need it for fast access to get some specific UI going. So of course this is there are pros and cons with this strategy. Some of the cons might be that if you change your mind late in the game and you have used the stamp 100 times, then you have 100 places where you sort of need to go back and rethink. So that's always the drawback with the stamp-like metaphor of doing things like this. On the other hand, it's fully flexible, so if you want one of them to behave different, you're free. And there's zero overhead. It's just the plain vanilla usual stuff, and there's not much that can go wrong, and you can easily tweak it the way you want and style it down to the smallest detail, because that's always the problem with the compound controls that sort of make assumption of what it's going to present. It also makes assumptions, a lot of assumptions on how it's going to be styled, and that sort of too bad, because that forces both the logic of the component into the styling of it, and you might like the logic but you don't like the styling, or you would like this button to be at the bottom or at the top or something, and you have your own idea on how it should be, and that will be hard if this was one monolith with just the data poured into it. And this opens up for I think a lot of creativity on how to just use normal stuff to get things going. And that's pretty much what the HTML sort of invites you to anyway.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is also that there's pros and cons, but there's no one solution to this, because there's so many different use cases. We are also now testing the new component feature that we will like bind and build the UI. The UI will be rendered slightly different later this autumn. It will be using Angular components that has like a set of variables coming into it, which makes it easier on a HTML level to build components or replace the built-in components. But exactly as Hans says, there's no way you can decide easily which is the right level because there are so many different ways or needs. So this is a way to basically stamp and do modeled functionality for a page. Within that, you can then put other components. But also, as you know, you can do a tab thing with have a component that is that. But in that, Hans has started by this because it's very, very difficult then to design what should be inside the component. So again, if it is like part of the features of the applications, then you probably want the view model and the designer to do it for you. But if it's a simple thing like I want to upload a file or I want to show an image, then that is like a technical component rather than a feature of the modeled application.
Yeah, so what you allude to, Lars, is that on this level, this is one of the widgets representing or the result of a string being presented without the read-only expression, and it's accessible from the model. Then it will be rendered as this edit box. But how do we decide how this edit box is actually every measurement on this and details of this? And that's what is going to be a possibility to override on application level to take control of that. And of course that will be usable for things as well.
Yeah. For example, if you want to completely redesign how a drop-down acts or looks or is searchable or is, some special UI feature that you want to use on a special device, then that's for your browser deep diving into Googling out how to do that. But that doesn't really affect the general data functionality of your application. So, and Hans here's primarily focusing on how to design within the designer, having flexibility on, for example, creating workflows, and they are needs to be handled with the model close by, and they can't be turned into small components easily.
Yeah, so this has always been the issue with the complex HTML and complex VPF and complex Windows Forms components. How do you add content inside?
So you're gonna. Oh
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. So that when you do the you say you haven't translated it to WPF yet, but so when you do that, I mean, do you then you face a decision as to whether to employ the WPF tab control or build it up from custom?
Yeah, so it will be built up just like it is in HTML. So when I say it hasn't been implemented in VPF, I actually mean that it hasn't been styled. So the styling hasn't been deployed to VPF, but tab 1, tab 2 and tab 3. So this one is actually, I'm not sure why this is acting up, so gonna need to look at that. And also the styling of these don't follow the recipe of the styling here. So that it should do. It should be able to turn off the shadow. It should be able to do the coloring, etc. So that it pretty much look like this, using only simple widgets. And So that's one of the benefits that VPF brought to the table, that you could do your own components with SAML using the normal components, and that's pretty much what we do, but we use the stamp metaphor to be able to reach inside it for each instance. And that's another thing that has been added, that you actually can do SVG in VPF, and that's really, really handy, because we haven't had a graphical language that translates between HTML and VPF before, but now we have. So and that enables us to do graphics and simple interactive UI controls with SVG.
Could you draw? Sorry, Derek first.
No, it was me, but please go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask if there are any constraints on that SVG. Can I draw something in Inkscape and import it, or does it have to follow some certain subset of SVG to work?
So what we have seen is that it pretty much works with most things. I think there's a few issues with the interaction of the inner parts, like clickable graphics, like if I what should happen if I do this, and that kind of SVG logic that you can add. But it's fairly good.
Okay.
I wanted just to mention that if you have been, and you have, Daniel and Derek, I guess you've been, in all these different UI ideas over the years, and it's always this, where should you compose and where should you plug in, and where should you copy, and when should you use design from other places. And there's no one size fits all. I just wanted to mention here that the strategy that Hans also implemented a while back is very interesting, that if you insert a view model in another view, what happens is that at runtime, it will compose it into one. So it's not like a plug-in, it is actually runtime composing, because we try the other path, and it kind of leads into something that you can't handle eventually, all the different ways of how should the cursor move, how should the clicking move, how should the data be bound. It's just an endless issue here. So instead, it takes a whole view and then it kind of copies the whole view model into the other view. So, and I just assume that would work even here, Hans. So if you make a tab in one, you could put a view model into this view model, and then that would, share parts. And so there's a lot of different ways to compose your UI, and there needs to be, because there's no way to know what will fit, and like what is the least effort for the most bang for the buck. The right amount of flexibility, the UI rendering you're doing, the device you're targeting, or the devices you're targeting. So, and then of course data. You need to data bind this in a cohesive way, and it needs to be easy to understand. So, yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, with the view model in view model, and the only way that I've used that, I use it a fair bit by virtue of putting a view model. I'm not aware that you can put a view model in a view model other than by doing it as part of a grid. I've put it as part of a grid, so the incorporated view model is in a grid. That's the only way I know about to do it, and that's forced me a lot to use the styles in model a lot more, because I can't. Or what I'm having difficulty with is then applying styles, through the through the apply style event, if you will, I can't get to the inner view model. All the columns and names only seem to apply to the outer view model, and I can't do custom stuff on the inner view model unless I'm probably missing a trick somewhere. But that's one of the issues I've had with view model. Although I love it, I use it quite a lot. It's great.
Yeah, let's see. So this label text is actually coming from the VPF style is off because it's just taking a snapshot of the other one. So if I go to this one and yeah, what I'm gonna do here then. Add some column and saying self some attribute doesn't exist, add a new attribute as a string. Okay, saving that. So what this merging does is it brings everything in into this context, and of course you would maybe, well, let's try this extreme, that you would want to put a button on this imported view model that switches to tab 3. Yeah, why would you want to do that? But add an action column.
Well,
and then
say
I know
the button
that
runs a report, and then on tab 3 is the result.
Yeah. So
yeah, but then you would probably put that button not, in a separate button outside the imported view, maybe.
so I'm just gonna
Probably.
see that, and so why I'm doing this is because this is the merging effect. It will actually enable you to communicate within the view if you respect the variable names. And so that's the way that we do it. So vtab1, if we set that value to 3, like this, and we do that from this view model that we import, of course it's going to complain because there is no vtab1 in this, but that's easily fixed. We just add it, and I don't know what happened now. So I'm trying to, on the other screen it sort of messed up something, unclear what at this point. And saving that. So when I push this one, it actually have merged, since the variable match in name, it's using, well, since it's merging it, the variable is the same. So when you set it to 3, that's the effect. So that's one way to inter-view communication. But of course, the obvious way is to just pull via the model, that you can have, that you use attribute data in both views, and then you also communicate any state and logic that way. But sometimes you don't want to model state from a view into the model because it's not well, it's only transient and it's only used for this session, and then variables are the way to go. And this is actually a cool effect of merging.
I can see, Hans, that we are
Oops.
we have missed this. You have a whole new thing also talking about subcolumns and all the things that they can do for easing a lot of things.
I mentioned that one very briefly, that the view model tree that we allow for this display subcolumns. Yeah, maybe we should go to the other view model. We can go here. And when subcolumns are on, we actually bring in, because this style ref expression here was a bit hidden before, it wasn't visible in the tree. If we turn this off, we only see tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, or here better, we don't see that there's a style a visible expression applied. Just looking at the tree, we need to sort of select each one. So and the subcolumns pull that in so that we can see the details, everything in the tree. And in order to allow for the smaller font, this is now zoomable, so it's easy to read even when someone has the 4K screens and screen share with me. Can't read it. And yeah, so this is actually good. And also we made it these kind of what we call subcolumns are made sort of first class citizens, that we know that we have the ones that we use the name and then underscore style or underscore visible, underscore read only, and label, etc. Those are easy to add. So that would be a good example for this one, view model 1. On the action column, I actually want to control the text on the label. Then I would do a extra subcolumn expression for label, and on that I would say self attribute 1 maybe. What was it called? Yeah, I can't spell. So and that way I would get the text from here, hello, to show up on this button here.
So the subcolumns allow things that before was called the column name underscore something. So it's like a way to add extra data to any attribute in a view model, and you can expand on it yourself. And then, of course, you could also use that in expressions any way you see fit.
And if we turn this off, it shows as okay, this might be the bug that
I'm responsible for.
Yeah. So now it shows so the action and the action column label. So it's more of a rendering thing, displays subcolumns. And now you see, Lars, it doesn't update until I do something. Now it updates. Yes, it does.
So eventually also that could be used for these components that we were talking about. That one idea here going forward would be that you could predefine subcolumns basically to say, yes, this attribute has the main attribute of this, but I also want to provide a lot of other things, but I don't want to do it as a whole view model class. So I want to provide like several expressions that all goes into this, for example, graph. So I can define the main axis, and then you can calculate these other things to send more data to the UI. So it's like a UI extension feature with subcolumns. It shouldn't be thought of as more data to be shown. It's data tightly coupled to the attribute instead of the of objects like you have with view model classes, right? Each one is an object. Here it's more extra attributes connected to an attribute.
Yeah. So we're out of time. So I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight, and hopefully we see you in 2 weeks.
Would you? Sorry, Hans. Would you have? We can stay on afterwards, but just time for one quick question regarding the container columns.
Yeah, sure.
On this, say on this, just a quick thing that I've noticed, and maybe I'm out of date with my implementation, but when you have just a regular text box or something like an attribute, and it's got like you've got presentation name there, is it? In WPF anyway, I was noticing it doesn't happen in the HTML world, but in my WPF world, I had to get rid of all of those when I was using container columns. Otherwise, the names would all end up in the top left-hand corner of the whole display. Is that something that's been fixed, or is that something that you were aware of?
No, I think that's fixed. If it
okay.
So if we test it with this one, start. Yeah, auto form seeker search. Show, yeah, and that's something that I need to fix, and then we're here. So that's the name of. Is this label you meant? So,
yeah, the internal label. Yeah,
but I think it's okay. So these are actually in placing containers, and it's positioned okay. So I think it should work.
Okay. Well, I'll get the latest version. I'll ping you.
Saying that, you should probably not get the latest version today because we have a known issue. But
okay.
I'll give you a heads up.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
See
bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye all.